Listen to this. This isn't just another headline you scroll past. This is the world watching a champion's image collapse in real time, with everyone involved bleeding publicly as whispers turn into receipts, legal threats, leaked texts, and friendships exploding on impact. Hold up. Once you see the timeline, you can't unsee it, because at the center is Claressa Shields, undefeated in the ring and celebrated as a symbol of strength and dominance. Yet outside the ropes, her life allegedly spiraled into chaos where ego, desperation, and betrayal collide hard. And girl, it gets ugly. Below the belt accusations fly, not playful gossip, but claims that threaten careers and freedom. Warnings are issued, names get dragged, lawyers step in. Cease and desist letters move quietly behind the scenes, and then comes the betrayal no one expected. A best friend detonates allegations so extreme the internet freezes. Underage relationships, pregnancies during fights, abortions, weight cuts while pregnant. And just when you think it can't get worse, a love triangle mutates into a five-way mess with a married man, a wife, an alleged side affair, a fiancé, and a public image destroyed by leaked receipts. Texts hit the timeline, flipping the narrative. The champion's strong image cracks. Desperate messages surface. The internet turns brutal. And now the question isn't who's right, it's who's lying, who's using who, and who's about to lose everything. And when Tasha K steps in, panic sets in. Captions change, apologies drop, lawyers clock in. Because once the receipts are out, there's no walking back. Stay tuned. This isn't gossip anymore. This is full-on exposure.
So here's what I'm going to do in terms of the cease and desist. So my lawyers have been going back and forth with her lawyer, and we've been trying to figure out what was actually said that was defamatory. Now, there was one thing that I did see that was mentioned that could be grounds for any type of lawsuit, but we have since corrected that. And so let me tell you what happened right before we get into the specifics of why we're here. All right, because this is my formal apology to the GOAT, to the greatest to ever do it. Okay, I told you if I get something wrong, we're gonna correct it.
Listen to this. The moment lawyers step into a story, it stops being tea and starts being a weapon, because gossip can be laughed off, but paperwork doesn't laugh, and that's what makes this feel so cold. Claressa Shields isn't just trending, she's being dragged into a narrative moving like a controlled demolition, claim after claim hitting, until you're not watching a scandal, you're watching someone's public identity dismantle in real time. And here's the part people miss. She didn't enter this drama as a random influencer. She came in as a champion. Belts, numbers, and history that should silence noise. But the internet doesn't care about resumes when it smells vulnerability. So when her name got tied to Papoose, a man still legally married to Remy, this didn't just get messy, it became combustible. Because every side is protecting something: image, leverage, control. And when control is the goal, nobody plays fair. That's why below-the-belt allegations hit hard. They aren't jokes. They shift sympathy and trigger legal action. And when warnings pop up about dragging her name, that's the sign the real war is already happening behind the curtain, born not on social media, but in private messages, screenshots, and people realizing they went too far. And it only gets darker because Claressa isn't fighting one enemy. She's fighting a collapsing circle. Remy, Papoose, Tasha K, and the most dangerous person of all, the best friend. Because strangers can lie and opponents can exaggerate, but when someone who allegedly knows your life steps forward, the public sees possibility, not gossip, which is exactly why the Jada angle detonates with trauma-level claims about underage situations, exploitation, pregnancies, and chaos decisions. And whether true or not, the damage is instant, splitting the audience between Claressa the champion and Claressa the alleged victim, turning the war into a darker question: why speak now? Revenge, attention, or release after a relationship snaps. And suddenly the triangle with Papoose and Remy stops looking like a triangle. It looks like a pentagon, because everyone has an extra connection, motive, or angle. Remy and Papoose are still married, rumors swirl about side situations, Claressa has her own fiancé, and romance becomes power and positioning, which is why one alleged phone call goes viral, humiliation on loop, replayed, remixed, becoming the symbol of the scandal. and then the texts drop, showing desperation and tone, and the public crowns winners and losers regardless of the truth, turning an undefeated champion into a punching bag, with lines like, undefeated in the ring but lost in love, which spreads because viral narratives compress complexity into one savage sentence. And while that spirals, the receipts conversation quietly gives the story legal teeth, not just about relationships, but about statements, posts, implications. And when commentary platforms start attaching allegations to drug use or character damage, it becomes potential defamation, which is why Tasha K moves from commentator to central figure navigating gossip versus legal exposure, because receipts can mean destruction or court documents. And the Hawaii angle isn't just a location, it becomes the stage where the side chick storyline gains momentum, anchoring the narrative where people claim the story got real.
They ended up doing a story on her being in Hawaii with Papoose, right? And Papoose's side chick allegedly popped up and said, I'm in Hawaii staying pretty too. Now, Remy Ma has already spilled the wine on Claressa not being the only one.
Listen to how this plays out. Even in the clip, it's like a chain reaction. Hawaii, Papoose, the side chick, Remy are already talking. This isn't a clean love story, it's a layered mess. And Claressa isn't even allegedly the only one, which is exactly why public perception gets so dangerous. Because once the not the only one angle sticks, Claressa's role shifts instantly. She's no longer the new love, she's just one of them. And that's when embarrassment takes over. Not because she can't date who she wants, but because the optics scream she's tied to a man still legally married. And the internet treats that like a punchline. But girl, it doesn't stop there, because the punchline morphs into legal tension, with platforms now not just reporting who's seen with whom, but narrating motives, roles, and power dynamics that could have real consequences.
Video of Claressa, man who's married, because she is technically dating a married man, which is a mistress, which is she's a champion and a side bitch at the same time, no allegedly, okay? He's still married to Remy. And you are very much thirsty, okay? Like I said, this is my formal apology.
Listen to this, because at this point, it's not just gossip anymore. It's a public label. Dating a man still legally married to Remy. And then comes the kicker, a formal apology. And girl, apologies don't happen when things are harmless. They happen when someone realizes the story has crossed into danger, which should leave the audience with one question, not closure. If it's already at the apology stage, what happens when the next receipts drop? Because next, this story doesn't just get messier, it gets expensive. And by the time the apology surfaced, the damage was already done. Because apologies don't erase narratives, they confirm that a line was crossed. And once that line exists, people don't ask what was said, they ask why it had to be walked back. And that's when the story shifts from embarrassment into legal gravity. Up until now, it could still be framed as gossip, messy relationships, blurred boundaries, leaked texts, public humiliation. Ugly, yes, but survivable. But the moment allegations touch something that could affect Claressa's career, her titles, her eligibility, her livelihood, the tone changes instantly. This isn't about who loved who anymore. It's about what can be proven. And the weed narrative is where it starts feeling dangerous, because suddenly the internet isn't arguing about feelings, it's arguing about tests, percentages, rules, consequences, a mouth swab, a urine test, one positive, one negative, and a world champion caught in a story she insists isn't true. And that's when chaos becomes positioning, because when accusations threaten medals and belts, people stop joking and start calling lawyers. Behind the scenes, teams panic, captions are reviewed, old posts reread, screenshots archived, not for content, for protection. And this is exactly where Tasha K's platform becomes central, not because she started the drama, but because amplification carries responsibility, which is why this interview moment matters so much. It's the exact second commentary collides with consequences.
Thing was posted alleging that Claressa smoked on our platform, and that is not true. To my knowledge, Claressa hasn't smoked any weed. To my knowledge, Papoose didn't give her any weed. And so that was that was damaging, right? And so I apologize for that, Claressa, and apologize that came out on my platform. And so we have since changed the caption to something that was directed at what was in the content. And I told my team, don't be adding nothing extra. Don't be adding nothing. Don't. I know you're messy. I know, that's why I hired y'all, but don't add nothing extra because then it costs me extra. And then I got to pay these lawyers, and these lawyers be $600 an hour.
Listen carefully, because in that clip, it's not denial, it's damage control. The language isn't emotional, it's procedural. Captions, posts, costs, lawyers, hourly rates. That's not gossip. That's someone realizing the story crossed into a zone where money, liability, and survival are on the line. And the subtext is deafening. Because when someone says that was damaging, they're not talking feelings, they're talking legal exposure. And when hourly rates get mentioned, that's fear wearing professionalism. And here's where the audience notices something else. The apology doesn't feel personal, it feels strategic. Not, I hurt you, but this could cost me. And once viewers sense that, sympathy evaporates and suspicion grows, because now the question becomes, if this part was wrong, what else was exaggerated? But the internet doesn't wait for nuance, it accelerates. Captions are corrected, context is leaked, old screenshots resurface, clips replayed frame by frame, every pause, every word, every deflection dissected. And that's where the receipts conversation mutates, because receipts don't just prove what happened, they decide who gets believed, and belief is everything. Claressa's camp insists the allegation is false, contaminated test, environmental exposure, technicality. And to be fair, none of that is impossible, but public opinion doesn't wait for appeals, it reacts brutally. Especially when the story already positions Claressa as vulnerable, emotionally entangled, allegedly chasing validation from a married man, allegedly framed as not the only one. So when the weed angle enters, it stacks on an already shaky narrative, and the internet collapses complexity into a character, not a person. And once you're a character, every action is read in the worst possible light. But while this unfolds publicly, something far more explosive brews quietly, because enemies can hurt you, but former friends can end you, which is where Jada re-enters, not a rumor, not a background name, but a threat. Because the allegations attributed to Jada don't just embarrass Claressa, they reframe her entire story, questioning agency, not choices. And that's why even skeptics feel disturbed. Because if even a fraction is true, the implications aren't gossip, they're criminal. And when allegations like that hit the public record, they can't be undone, which is why silence becomes strategy. Notice how Claressa doesn't rant, scream, or clap back, because reacting emotionally is a trap. Instead, the response is cold, positioning her as a victim, not a participant. And that shift matters because legally it flips everything. If she's framed as harmed, manipulated, or exploited, the narrative flips from side chick drama to survivor story. And suddenly, the person trying to expose her is the one in danger, which is exactly why this next interview segment hits like a warning shot.
Oh, this is Jada Davis, and this is Claressa's ex-bestie. I don't take it that they're still best friends, because why would she be telling this girl business like this? I said, do she think she Tasha K or something? Does this little girl think she Tasha K? Jada! What? Baby, you should have came to me and I would have helped to put this out in a way where you're not looking bad. This is bad, Jada. This is bad. You really made Claressa look good and you made yourself look bad. You're a bad, bad person. A bad person. I don't even understand what is the point of you doing all of this. Yeah, I'm about to hire her. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Listen. I wanted to reach out for a job. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Okay, listen, baby girl. Just like my team is gonna go through newsroom training with my defamation lawyers so they'll know how to post so that it doesn't cost us money. If Clarissa turns around and sues you, you're going to lose because she was a victim. Like,
Listen carefully, because that clip does something deliberate. It doesn't validate the allegations, it redirects the danger. Instead of asking, did this happen, it asks, why would you say this? And that shift is powerful, because once motive becomes the focus, credibility wobbles. Revenge, resentment, a falling out gone nuclear, and suddenly the internet replays everything with a new lens, shifting from exposing Clarissa to asking why Jada is doing this now. And that's not accidental, that's narrative warfare. And it works because people instinctively know the worst betrayals come from inside the circle. At this point, the story isn't just about Clarissa or Papoose or Remy. It's about who controls the narrative, and whoever controls it controls the outcome. Clarissa's image is under attack, Tasha K is legally cornered, and Jada is framed as reckless. Papoose mostly silent, Remy looming without saying a word, and silence itself becomes weaponized and loud, leaving the audience unsettled, because the scariest stories aren't the ones fully exposed. They're the ones where everyone protects themselves at once, truth leaking in fragments, accidental slips, and insincere apologies. And this is exactly where the story moves next, because if part of it is legal danger and narrative control, what comes after isn't embarrassment, it's collapse. And someone always breaks first, because silence doesn't calm chaos, it redirects it. And everyone involved knows that whatever happens next won't be undone by explanations. It will be defined by who cracks first, which is where part 3 begins, not with a new accusation, but with consequences. As the internet digs in deeper, archiving screenshots, replaying old interviews, recontextualizing harmless moments, and suddenly the situation isn't about love, it's leverage. A world champion, publicly disciplined and untouchable, privately allegedly emotionally entangled with a married man, public humiliation, legal threats, apologies, reframing. It's a collapse sequence, exposing the weakest points first. And for Clarissa, the danger isn't gossip itself, but how layered claims erode credibility. Which is why framing her as a victim becomes critical. It shifts legal posture, moral posture, and public sympathy, turning the people talking about her reckless. And reckless speech is how cases are lost fast. And the most uncomfortable truth is that the most dangerous allegations aren't shouted, they silence people. Papoose quiet, Remy restrained, Tasha K cautious, and Jada isolated. All risk assessment. Because once a lawsuit enters the equation, alliances shift, the loud go quiet, jokers delete posts, and exposers realize exposure cuts both ways. And this is where the story turns cold, because at this phase it's no longer about truth, it's about survival. Who can fight, withstand discovery, keep messages sealed, and avoid witnesses being questioned? And that's why the registered weapon comment lands differently, not as a threat, but as a warning.
said if Clarissa find you, she gonna whoop your ass. Oh, Clarissa gonna whoop your ass. Oh, Clarissa gonna whoop your ass, and I can't save you. Nobody can save you. Nobody. She's a trained killer. Her hands are trained. They're registered.
Listen closely, because that line isn't just bravado. Underneath, it's about consequence, reminding everyone watching that Clarissa isn't just a public figure being talked about. She's a trained fighter whose body itself carries weight, literal or metaphorical. And the message is clear. This isn't safe for reckless mouths. And that single clip changes the temperature, because now the audience isn't just thinking embarrassment, they're thinking real-world danger. And that's when the internet starts backing off, not out of care, but because fear drowns curiosity. And suddenly the fake black love branding starts to crystallize, because Remy and Papoose weren't just a couple, they were an image, a marketed symbol, a counter-narrative to chaos, loyalty after prison, ride or die storytelling. And once that image cracks, everything underneath is re-examined. Old interviews feel scripted, past praise strategic, silence is intentional. And Clarissa may have walked into the aftermath without realizing the stage was already collapsing. Because here's the truth no one says. If Papoose valued her the way she allegedly valued him, she wouldn't be fighting public humiliation alone, absorbing narrative damage by herself while he stays insulated. And that imbalance doesn't look like love, it looks like utility. And once that settles, the public narrative hardens, not against Claressa, but against the situation she allowed herself into, which is why the tone shifts from mockery to pity, from ridicule to concern, from side chick jokes to how did she get here? A devastating pivot, because pity doesn't restore power, it strips it. And by the end of part 3, the audience should feel one thing. This story is no longer escalating for entertainment, it's stabilizing for damage control, which means the loudest phase may already be over, and what comes next won't be shouted, live-streamed, or joked about. It will happen quietly, through lawyers, statements never released, evidence never shown, leaving the public with fragments, edited memories, unanswered questions. But one truth remains. Whatever this started as, love, ego, attention, fame, it ended as a war of narratives. And in wars like this, the last person standing isn't the one who told the loudest story. It's the one who knew when to stop talking. And that's why the story doesn't end here. Because the silence you're hearing now, that's not peace.